Welcome to the Quantum City Initiative, a show about the most important stories, ideas at the intersection of AI, cities, real estate, and the leaders shaping the future of how and where we live and work. Do you save and reinvigorate cities, or are you building new ones?
What is most critical for cities in the future with this sort of AI factory race to work? All right, EP 17, the QCI show. Been a minute. It's been a little busy this time of year. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Christmas season is upon us. How you doing, Chase?
I'm tired, man. My 7-year-old woke me up at 2:30. Had a nightmare about crabs.
Crabs.
Yeah. Yep.
They're scary. I'll give them that for sure. Crustaceans, terrifying.
Yeah, so I'll see what I can bring here for our folks. I'm also in a tiny little phone booth.
It's a podcast booth. We got Chase's own little pod booth.
Little pod booth.
All right, let's get going. Couple things to just prime the pump here. We're a little rusty, so let's just prime the pump here a little bit. Wild couple of weeks here. Number one thing, Sam Altman declared a code red. All I thought about with code red was that movie You Can't Handle the Truth. A Few Good Men. Love that. Apparently OpenAI is being caught mostly by Google and Gemini. And then in local news, to kick things off, and this isn't new to anybody, we've talked about this. What happens when commercial real estate prices fall? Who gets hit the hardest? It's not the LPs. It's not the buyers and sellers of the transaction. It's the plural public. Mayor Wu projected a 6% drop in commercial values for next year, which is going to drastically impact the city's budget. Bummer. All right. The big story this week, you're going to love this, man. You're going to love this. This is a great one. CRE Tech's inflection point. AI is here to stay. We've talked about AI a ton. AI in commercial real estate, not as much. Commercial real estate, as we know, somewhat of a laggard to adopt some of the technology. I do think that's changing. Well, JLL just recently released, I think it's a week or two old, their technology survey for 2025. They surveyed over 1,500 global CRE leaders to really show that AI adoption, honestly, farther and much more adopted than I really had an understanding. So to kick things off, 92% of occupiers and 88% of investors, building owners, are running AI pilots. Pretty interesting. We got a ton of data to go through. First off, what's your initial take on just those numbers with regards to AI adoption?
It's just amazing to see how fast the cycles now move. Tying it to your opening with OpenAI, the fact that models are converging so quickly and there isn't a lot of differentiation on model performance. And OpenAI, I think it was like they had 800 million monthly active users and Google's at 650. It used to be hard to catch up when the big players had escape velocity, and this cycle is just happening way faster. And it's showing up in the end user adoption in commercial real estate. Now, where I would start to ask questions is, okay, let's focus on the investors, because we know how, let's put IT forward, commercial real estate is as an industry. How many of those pilots are just people like banging on chatbots, right?
There's a lot, because one of the next stats is, and this is odd, but only 5% have achieved their AI goals. Now, I don't know if you'd ever achieve what would be your AI goal, but I think that's where you're pulling is there's a lot of individuals testing, using it, maybe asking advice into ChatGPT or Grok, but they've yet to really harness the power of it.
And I think that's where you saw this in the last prop tech cycle before COVID and interest rates went up. There was a lot of, we'll play around with this tool, that tool, whatever. So I think it matters essentially where the budget is coming from. So how many of these things get operationalized, and where's the ROI going to come from? Is it driving revenue? Is it decreasing OpEx? Is it helping with reporting, what have you? So I do think that there's a pretty good window for players to come in and crack open some IT budget, because it's really going to start to shift labor budget into IT budget. And that's always been the problem with the structural kind of challenges of commercial real estate between the building budgets and the platform budgets and all that
Yeah,
complexity.
and speaking of budget, so again, this is the JLL report. This is the largest tech investment surge JLL has ever recorded. So 87% of companies increased their tech spending over the past 24 months. 29% of those boosted their budgets by more than 20%. During that same period, we all know that the jobs reports and companies have been laying off. So that's exactly what you're saying. We're seeing a record increase in tech spending. We're also seeing companies trim headcount. Now, where's that money going? According to this report, the top tech priorities for the 1,500 global CRE leaders, number
Mm.
one, 74%, AI for operational efficiency. Number two, and this one's garbage and just a catch-all, I'm not a fan of it, but smart building and IoT systems, fine at 68%. Number three, occupancy analytics. Honestly, the fact that's even an answer here is offensive because that's table stakes for me, but we'll leave that aside. Number four, cybersecurity at 58%. Honestly, thought that would have been higher. Number five, tenant experience platforms at 55%. I don't even like the name tenant experience anymore, but I'll let you respond now to the top tech priorities.
I think the operating expense one is hands down the most interesting, because when you think of an industry that is ripe for efficiency, it's commercial real estate through and through. And they continue to get stuck in this quagmire of a lot of the headcount is set up from decades ago, where you needed people on premise, literally go as far back as when you used to collect rent in person. And the example here was previously, we, before HKO, we did some work with an old media company that had started in newspapers, needed to transition online. And their whole cash management system was predicated upon, back in the day, they used to have to go to the newsstands and collect the money from the
Hmm.
people who sold the papers. And they would still, in a digital age, wipe all the cash from the bank accounts at the end of the day and then put it back in the morning, which, like, I could never wrap my brain around that. I was like, you don't have to do that anymore. But old processes stay in place. And I think there's a ton of headcount allocation to the location of the building for certain tasks and workflows that very much can at least be centralized, but can also be centralized and automated with AI.
I think that's going to be the big shift for 26, because even here, the barriers for in the survey, what's preventing you, right, from being more sort of IT adoption or tech adoption or AI adoption, it's not really budget. It's not super technical. It's operational. It's systems integration. It's skill gaps in people, and it's data fragmentation. And that's exactly what you just talked about. So, like, when I hear those three things, those are people things. Those are people and process things.
Yeah, commercial real estate, similarly to a lot of countries, I think commercial real estate reflects the demographic issue. So I do like to say that youth knows no age, but when you think about the average age of the commercial real estate industry and kind of that whole, lots of industries went through, oh, they hired digital natives. The digital native portion of the workforce seemed to miss commercial real estate. So they need to get some AI native people. And I think anybody can adopt AI, but I do think I see it with my kids. Like, they're just much more natural with certain new technologies than we were, because they're, it's
Just
much
around
more
it.
intuitive for them.
They're just around it. Now, this next stat here, I'd like to say you came up with it, man, in your QCI
Mhm.
paper. I'd like to say JLL borrowed it from you, but it's nice to see them publish it. They got a little more distribution, a little at HQO. The gap is growing. Tech leaders now show 2.3x higher NOI growth, 40% lower operational costs, much higher tenant satisfaction scores, which means the tech laggards, higher vacancy, higher costs, lower asset competitiveness.
Yeah, tech laggards, it's kind of like running a charity for their competitors' future tenants. You're just not going to keep them. Like, you might eke out a little bit more profit here or there before the lease is up, but um, if you weren't making and it's the same thing in any cycle, which is, and you can retroactively look at it, but when you're investing into something when everybody else is doing it, you're probably late, right? So I think the people who have been making smart bets early and stuck with it when budgets got tight are going to see gains, because technology is only as good as the adoption and all the change management that comes along with it. So it's like building a muscle or training for a sport. It's not just something where it's like, all right, we'll wait for the technology to quote unquote be ready. You got to get the people ready to be successful with the technology.
And my interpretation with some of this is that it's always been which building has the best amenities and
Mm,
the sexy roof deck or a restaurant. And don't get me wrong, those obviously play a role into a higher rent, like for sure, right? Nice lobbies, et cetera, et cetera. But the way I think about this now is that the more intelligent a building, the data, the systems, the experience, the energy efficiency, this report is telling us that those are the new rent drivers, really.
for sure. It's like this is the hardest, I would say, hard data backing up the ROI of technology that I've seen in any report. And it's not particularly surprising. JLL is a perfect example of a group that I think had a very smart technology strategy that obviously we're partners with them on it, but they timed it perfectly, which was a lot of small bets through the venture fund into early stage emerging companies. And they probably saw more deal volume and more of what people were building than probably any other commercial real estate company on the planet. And they're very well positioned to understand what's actually moving the needle across their clients across the different business units.
I'm excited to see, obviously, Monday morning quarterback and see what next year looks like. I think what is missing here, if I were to critique this, I would love to see, as we talked, they were talking about budgets and spend and AI and all that sort of stuff. I'd love to see the labor statistics against it. And I'd love to see the
Mm.
earnings against it with some of these REITs and whatnot. Let's bring some more of that financial and workforce data in to really tie a bow on how does technology and AI really impact company performance, enterprise value growth, either asset value growth, and then what does it do for the shape of the organization?
So that's your ask to our friend Ben Breslow over there. Research request.
Let's go for it, Ben. All right, let's continue going down the nerdy route here. This is a segment that's been in the show notes for about 4 weeks now. I've shelved it every time. Sorry, Justin. Justin really wants Chase to nerd out on this one here. And I agree, this is a good one. It's a good time for it. So, we've talked about the quantum building concept, the sort of quantum city concept, where you need to basically connect everything. And the most important element of the city is a connected building. So let's talk about buildings as a node in a living city network. What is critical and important, Chase, for a city, maybe like Boston, for example, based on what we just talked about, technology adopting in all of these different landlords and CRE leaders? How can a city or a building position themselves as a smart node to create what is that sort of first quantum city?
I think the way we define quantum city is, and we've iterated on this with some great feedback from many of our nice listeners and other community members, but we're really focused on the outcome of economic growth. So we've said it's 10% over a 10-year period, which you go back in history, we've outlined this a bunch on other shows, talks, content, whatever. There is a historical pattern of when you get these boom towns, or it's Dubai or Singapore or some of the US cities earlier on in the country's development, cities can attain that kind of growth. And what you always see historically is that it comes from influxes of talent, but it also comes from essentially what we now call better infrastructure. But at the time, a lot of that was much more categorized as technology. So the first elevator back in the 1800s in New York City was mind blowing technology that allowed us to build up more vertically, bring more people into a city. And we say that cities ultimately are the ultimate kind of human computers, if you will, where information is passed between people. And buildings now with technology are in a really interesting place where we've seen this in other business models, right? What Uber did with cars, what Airbnb did with apartments or living spaces, or however you want to think of that. There's so much inventory in buildings that is stuck in an antiquated business model of you need to take a high cost traditional lease. And there's a lot of different ways that people can use space in buildings, particularly as they're building the buildings with significantly more communal space, event space, amenity space. So the office tower isn't just a box with leases anymore. It really is a compute node in the city's operating system of how people, interact with one another. And there's going to be a really interesting kind of network effect where you combine the physical infrastructure of the building with software that can connect people in the traditional network effect sense that we've seen lots of different, let's call it Web 2.0 type of companies that they unlocked mostly for digital interaction, but I think it's going to move to networks that drive physical interaction.
So when
So
you're
I think it's going to completely change the way that we essentially use cities and ultimately probably design cities.
how so we know lease lengths are shortening. There's still your
Mm,
sort of longer leases, right? There's your Citadels and your Goodwins and so on that obviously take their long holds, 10 plus year leases. But in what you're talking about, is that one of the biggest drivers where you're talking about easier, quicker, more fluid interaction with space, which doesn't necessarily translate to a traditional lease?
yeah, I think there's going to be a litany of use cases in between what we currently have as a barbell. You've got the 10 plus year lease,
Yeah.
and then you have the co-working day pass, or I need 4 hours at a WeWork or whatever. And there's all sorts of in between, right? So I like to give the example. My wife works in retail at Primark, and she needed like a 4 to 5 month lease, I guess you would call it, on space for a pop-up shop. And she walked me through the process of trying to get one of those in Manhattan. It's like a nightmare. The cost to acquire that space and the cost to sell that space basically makes it economically not feasible to do that kind of transaction. And I think if the industry has tools to repurpose the physical space to be adaptive based off of different use cases, and the tools to sell that space with significantly less friction, it will actually wildly increase demand for space with significantly more product SKUs.
I think so. I get the technology piece. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this notion of the physical, flexible adaptability of the space.
Mm,
That's got to be a
yeah.
big hurdle. And I think, wasn't it Steve Weichel who was talking about some of the buildings being built? I forget where it was, that basically it was effectively movable walls. And I don't even understand the technology he was talking about. He's a big MIT guy. That stuff's over my Babson educated head here. But to me, that's got to be where a lot of new development and R&D has got to be focused.
Yeah, I think there is the physical engineering and innovation required where you bring down the cost to repurpose the bricks and sticks of a space. And Steve talking about I forget what MIT lab and if it was students or someone else, they were working on just that, which is it costs 6 months, a project team, you're knocking down walls. How do you build these buildings in a way where you can repurpose the floor plate much more automatically? So I think there's interesting work being done there that's still relatively early in its development. But even just with the space that we have, you have partitioned walls, you have the whatever material they're made out of where it's easy to take them down. There's still just a massive barrier to marketing that space, finding an end market to use
Mhm.
it. No one has built the typical kind of e-commerce infrastructure to sell that solution because they didn't care to sell it, because if you can get a 10-year contract, who wouldn't take that? But the demand side of the market, the tenants are saying like, yeah, we're going to have our anchor spaces that are going to be more long term, but they have a very hard time human capital planning where things move so quickly. They just need to be way more adaptive on where they house their people, if you will.
The way I think about these nodes is like a series of cell phone towers that, like, as I go through the city, it's just
Mm,
pinging and gathering data about me, and then my call never drops. So effectively, I can go in and out of buildings from my own network. I love the idea. We're looking at some new space in Boston, but I love the idea of a headquarters, and then the ability, and this is one of the nice things about London. We spend a lot of time in London. We're a tenant of, what's the name now? Oh, Fora was the office group. They combined, they merged. One of the things that they've done really is they have the ability to sort of book at any point in time. They called it, which I think is one of your terms, the 15-minute city, where at any point in time in London, I can book a conference room within a 15-minute walk. So if I'm at a customer meeting
mm.
and I need space to take another phone call, I can now book that. They've done a really good job of that. I'm excited to see a city like Boston, a city like Manhattan do that. I think it's going to open up, like you talk about this return to office. That's going to really open up how we use the city more. It's going to really bring people back a hell of a lot more than just going to your one specific building and your one specific desk.
And I think operators and anyone in the services piece of this, we have these very strange silos in commercial real estate where brokerage is really a transactions group, and then you have the people that operate the space, typically in PM or facilities, and those lines need to blur because the relationship tends to live closer to the people who operate the space. And if you can develop a direct relationship with the demand, you're going to be, if I'm an investor, I'm looking for an operational group that is showing me an LP deck, an investor deck, whatever. That's not just, hey, we managed this building over a 5-year life cycle and got a return. Obviously, I want to see that, but I want to know what kind of demand are you going to bring
Right.
to my building
Mhm.
so that I can mitigate downside risk of and things like that. I'm also, to stick with your cell tower, the other thing is it's like exhaust from a car. It's like data exhaust that cities are going to be able to use in terms of if we can get more data across how people use different buildings in different areas, our city planning is going to be substantially more efficient.
So, how do you, we've talked about the political will and skill. And shout out to friend of the pod, Dan Coe, when he was back in, was he chief of staff to Mayor Walsh in Boston? He actually really tried to put together what was, I forget what he called it, the dashboard or the city or something like that. He did a really good job gathering that data, but most of it was that public record data, it was traffic data, it was traffic cam data, it was all of that. And really where it lacked, and no fault of his own, is that private sector sort of partnership. So is that sort of the missing piece? And how do you see somebody like a mayor of Boston or a mayor of Manhattan? How do you see them gathering that data? Is it relationships with property management like JLL, service firms like CBRE, or is it relationships with the building owners? Or is it just open APIs in the buildings? I don't know.
I think there's got to be, this goes all the way back to our, uh, I forget however many pods ago it was, when we talked about the penalties that I think it was California or something for
Yeah.
undeveloped buildings. I
Oh, yeah.
think there need to be incentives for
to plug in the
public-private
data.
data sharing, right? So you got to make it worth people's while. You have to prioritize, obviously, you know, individual privacy, but anyone who's fear mongering around that, we have the technology to both make sure that data is secure and private while also anonymizing
Mhm.
and aggregating in ways that would be most useful for people at the city level. So I think there's going to be some, we don't have to dream this up. They do it really well. Obviously, they're not as concerned with privacy in the Middle East, but they've proven that if you get that data,
Mhm.
you can build cities of the future. And I think we need to balance the two things that are both important to America and the West, which is individual liberty and making sure that we're staying at the frontier and we're leading in, you should come to our cities and you should be like, this is like the best city I've ever been to.
Love it. We'll leave it there. Let's go to quick hits. Let's talk about news the past week and a half or so. And this ties right to what we were just talking about. Speaking of platforms to help monetize real estate, Crexi, Crexi. Is it Crexi? Is that how I say it? Crexi? Crexi? We'll
I
go
think
with
you
Crexi.
nailed it.
We'll go with Crexi. Crexi platform hits a record $815 billion in active listings. What I love about
Mm,
this, here's your commercial real estate marketplace, right? So what this is trying to do is go at somewhat of the brokerage, sort of old school way of let me go out for lunch, go tour a handful of buildings, take many months and many weeks to go through it. Crexi's got a marketplace here. That is almost a 20% increase from 2024. And their monthly active users also increased about 7%. And lease transactions climbed 23% over the year. So digital adoption it's early. These numbers are small in the grand scheme of things, but we're moving in
yeah.
the right direction here.
Look, it's not a question of if you're going to have a much more e-commerce driven or enabled purchasing process for commercial real estate. You buy everything else in your life with some sort of e-commerce enablement. It's mostly in technology and startups a question of timing. So it's not a new idea. It's going to come down to execution. And you needed the events of COVID and the interest rate cycle to create enough pain
Mhm.
that the supply would change. And so I think these numbers show that.
We talked about AI. The majority of the AI companies are in good old Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley's having its resurgence. We've talked about SF really being a dumpster fire with regards to the commercial real estate market and many other things, maybe the politics there and whatnot, but we won't get into that today. However, Q3 positive, mostly led by the AI companies, but first positive net absorption in leasing since the pandemic, signaling that AI is single-handedly, you could argue that NVIDIA and Jensen and AI is single-handedly really running this entire economy. But it's certainly the SF Silicon Valley real estate market. There's some positive news out of the West Coast and some of the markets that were hit the hardest since the pandemic.
We're back up, man. And look, I think it's always I say this about technology adoption. Watch the people who make the technology and what they do. It was like the early indicators that people at Apple and Twitter and wherever else didn't allow their kids to use a lot of the tools that they built. And it was like, that was probably a pretty good indicator that there's some downside health effects to that technology, which I think have proven out. And the people who are building the technology that is going to automate a lot of labor is emphasizing people being in person together. That to me is a leading indicator that if I'm a worker anywhere, I should be insisting that I'm working in person with the team because I think being close to the human value is proven if the AI people are requiring in person work.
All right, let's pull on that thread a little bit. So you're in Boston right now. I'm not. We both go to Boston on average 4 days a week or so. Majority of our company, 3 days a week in Boston, pushing to maybe four. Outside of the traffic, that's really the only data that I have, although I got some more data in my notes here. The traffic stinks going in and out of the city. However, Boston is drastically lagging behind every other city in its return to office. How does that resonate with you as a guy who goes into Boston 4+ days a week, as a CEO of a company, commercial real estate company, off what you just talked about, getting people to come back to the office, and our own hometown city is behind?
It's a worst case situation in that we both have a depressing downtown in this city
Yeah.
and we still get crushed with traffic. So it's devil is laughing in our faces. I think ultimately, like saying the quiet part out loud, when people don't want to be with the people they work with, it's an indicator of their interest of the work.
Mhm.
And I get some people are more introverted and you can focus better and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of labor risk in being someone that if you if it's not important for you to be face to face with people, then I just think it increases the risk exposure in the role moving, right?
Yep.
You expose yourself to this role you're going to compete with a more, whether it's global or bigger labor pool, you're going to be competing more. And it's having a face to the name, if you will, I think is important when you start to think about, job automation and those things.
So you're putting the onus on the companies. So we're saying the companies in Boston are struggling with their return to office, or the employees are struggling to want to go back in and to want to see these individuals. How much does the actual city play into this? And the reason why I'm asking is because we're in downtown Crossing area. By the way, I didn't know that Anna's Taqueria took over the Belogo space. So that's new. That's going to bring me into the office a little bit more. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of vacant storefronts still. A lot of the restaurants that were there haven't really recovered. You got your slot bowls, you got Chipotle and Cava and all those gross things now.
Love
But
them.
how much does the neighborhood and the city play into this, you think, outside of the companies? You were saying it's more of a company thing. How does Boston's neighborhood, restaurants, vibes play into this?
I don't know if it's like that's question of percentage is a very good question. And I'd probably change my answer every day, but I'll just cut it a third. Maybe 50%, 25, 25. I think at the end of the day, the employer sets the tone. They have the direct relationship on what the
Okay.
office policy is. So I'll peg them at 50. I think 25% of it is on the environment and atmosphere that you're coming into. It's way easier to come in subconsciously if there's social proof of a buzzing neighborhood or even your office, whatever. I think that helps ease the pain and change the habit back to coming into the office. And then I think 25% is on the individual.
It's whether or not they want to do it. Okay. Or they're
Yeah.
set up to do it,
Prior-
whatever. There's outside
Priorities.
forces everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's more to the city and the setup of the city than the company.
Yeah, I do think Boston, when you just think about our road infrastructure and all that,
It's a
like
disaster.
it
Getting
is
into the city sucks.
it's set up to make the experience bad.
It's set up to make it
Uh,
bad. So even if my employee is going to make me come in, I'm going to just already be in a bad mood. And you talk about London and some of those European cities. Now they got their own bag of issues, but it's a heck of a lot more vibrant in the afternoon, maybe a little too early in the afternoon, but it's a heck of a lot more vibrant in those downtown cities in the European markets where people are out hanging out. And maybe they should be working. And honestly, maybe they should be, but they're hanging out in the city centers.
yeah, I agree.
One of my favorite topics to discuss here, and here's a little "I told you so" moment. Malls are back in a big
Yeah, you're a
way.
big mall guy.
A big mall guy. I
Big
got
mall guy.
made fun of quite a bit because Justin had a wonderful, I think, social media clip on Instagram where I said I'm a big mall guy. I don't know if anybody in commercial real estate saw that, but every single one of my friends and family saw that and call me the mall guy now. However, let's talk some data. Premium malls are winning. They are back. I love this. What also is back is e-commerce. So this whole notion of consumer spending, we don't have the Black Friday and Cyber Monday numbers, but they're going to be absolutely massive. But e-commerce hit a record 44 billion in Q3, which is huge.
Mhm.
Despite e-commerce being huge, premium malls also outperforming the rest of retail real estate. Vacancy rates at premium malls below 5%. Vacancy rates at sloppy malls, tier B and C, 20%. Foot traffic up 8% year over year at premium malls. Per square foot rates, premium malls over $1,000. Luxury, experiential categories, luxury goods, everything is driving people. So, my same question to you around how much does the city play into this? What we're seeing here is a premium retail experience, getting people out of the house, getting them to come, getting them to shop.
It's commodity space versus experience space. It's the haves and the have-nots. So experiential landlords versus legacy transactional landlords. If there's an easy way to short the legacy transactional folks, I'd put all my money on it. It's just so obvious when you see what's happened in retail, what's happening in office. The data is about as clear as it gets. And in retail, as it is in office, I think experience and great assets are winning because they're consolidating demand. They are making it, it's our old buddy Joe Pine and the experience economy. It's not just about time savings, right? You used to go shop or whatever to get the things that you needed. You cared about convenience. Now it's about time well spent, and that's experiential value. So people are looking for experiences that enrich their time, and I think that's cascading across all asset classes.
Malls are back. Premium malls are back. One more bit of news this week. This news is incredibly depressing for me. So I love this time of year. You get to do your year in reviews, your year wrap ups. I think Spotify just did my yearly wrap. It's no surprising. It's like kids focused things on my Spotify and whatnot. So it didn't tell me much about myself.
They already
YouTube.
came out. I haven't seen that. I got
I
to
think
find
it
that.
came out today. YouTube, I'm seeing a lot of people post out about it. YouTube just came out with its cultural trends report, in a report showing basically what's dominating pop culture, right? So we'll go through some of this. And as I was preparing the show notes, I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. I love this, right? I think I'm a tech savvy guy, love the internet myself. I don't have a goddamn clue about any of the things that showed up on the pop culture 2025 year in review for YouTube. So I am like so out of bounds, apparently. Okay, so let's get into it. The top trending topics of the year, Chase, a couple of them we've talked about. K-pop Demon Hunters, big one.
That's a winner.
Okay. Labubu. Those little.
What is Labubu? I don't know what that is.
I think it's like a, what are those stupid dolls? It's like a Beanie Baby that people hang on to themselves or something. It's super weird. Other stuff here, I don't know. Roblox, I know, is a video game thing. Squid Game, well, that was a TV show, right? Maybe. Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, Roblox.
Fine.
Yeah, Roblox is just brain rot.
Brain rot. That comes up a bunch. Didn't know what that was. Cookie Run Kingdom, Nintendo Switch. Okay, so like a bunch of stuff I don't know. I know K-pop Demon Hunters, big K-pop guy. The top creators.
Yeah, did you see them in the? Did you see the Demon Hunters in the Macy's Day Parade?
Crushed.
Little underwhelming.
What?
Little underwhelming.
Dude, little underwhelming. What? Would you want them to actually bring out swords or something? What the hell did you want them to do? They absolutely dominated. The entire thing's it's a lip syncing show, which is a bummer. It's so obvious.
Not my boy Busta Rhymes. He was talking up New York City. That guy still got it, man. Still got it.
In and of itself, the fact that Busto's still, he does still have it. Kudos to him. The fact that he didn't show up on this list. Let's go to top creators. Okay, number 1, Mr. Beast. Okay. We know Mr. Beast. I don't know anybody else here other than Charlie Kirk that was listed. There's no Double Date, iShow Speed, Kayla's Block. Who the hell are all these? What are the kids watching these days?
No idea. They make so much money though.
Top songs. Bruno Mars. Never heard of it. I know Bruno. Kendrick Lamar, fine. Saja Boys, know them, obviously. Huntrix, know them. It's all K-pop Demon Hunters. Top songs by YouTube Shorts. Black Eyed Peas, can't believe they're still around. Skrilla, again, old school.
I like the longevity though. I like Bruno getting.
Bruno's apparently still got it. Billie Eilish, the top podcasts. This is the only one where I've seen a few of these. Joe Rogan, number one, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
Kill Tony, number two, fine. Theo Vaughn, number 9. Honestly, didn't think he would have got that big of a nod. Theo, the thing with Theo is, I get his shtick of being the slow Southerner, and I thought that was more of a shtick than it is. He really is slow.
I've never listened to. I've only seen like some clips here and there. I think
I
he was
want to
crying
like him.
recently. I don't know.
It's hard. Yeah, I want to like him. It's hard. Anyways, so like I thought I was going to be so excited with this YouTube 2025 year wrap up in review, thinking I'd learn a little something. The only thing I learned was that I don't have a clue what the kids are doing these days. And then I'm just, I'm over 40 now all of a sudden, and I have no idea what's trending in the US anymore.
Yeah, you're what the kids call an old. You're an old.
An old.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, man. We're back. Decent show this week. Apologies for going dark a bit. We had some travel and the holidays. We'll get back to our regular.
I got one more bit. I got one more bit of news.
You got some news? Oh,
yeah.
Let's go.
Got to give a shout out to the U8 Duxbury Dragons undefeated soccer team. Your son ripped a great goal for the 1-0 win over the Milton Gorillas. So I don't want to say it's all coaching, but I don't know.
The coaching's there, I will say. If you think about time allocation, youth sports podcast, time allocation for
our pod would be better if we spent the youth sports time on it.
But I will say, and there's an incredibly depressing series of articles out now about how private equity is ruining youth sports, but predominantly youth hockey, because the private equity firms are buying up all the rinks and what they're doing. And I'm a subscriber of Live Barn, which I think was like $20 a month. It was a subscription service to stream the game so I can get some highlights. There's a new one out now called Black Bear, and it's $300 a month. Like, it's ungodly expensive. They turned off the other ones. Like, I will say that private equity, I thought I was going to be a fan of this. Private equity coming in for youth sports. If the prices are where this is going, I am not a fan of it.
You just said you subscribe to Live Barn. You're a part of the problem.
Yeah, but that's like the cheaper, like old school.
Oh, please, you're a luxury guy. Mark my words, dear listeners. In 2 to 3, I'll peg it at Q1. You're gonna be a subscriber to Bear Box, or what is it? Black Bear? What is it?
I think it's called Black Bear. I'm gonna hold off as much as possible. I will say I'm putting together a memorandum to acquire a hockey rink, or a handful of rinks now. So I'm actually looking to wet my beak in all this. If you're interested, let me know. This isn't investment advice, but if you're looking to get on ripping parents off for youth sports, just hit us up in the comments. We'll get in on it. All right. Great show this week. Good to be back. We'll get back to regularly scheduled programming starting in January. We're going to have a series of guests on the show. We've been talking about that for a while. Invites are finally out, which is good. We will be taking this on the road. And we've also kicked off a series of live video series at properties. We have a handful of our team in Sweden today doing a live video series of a property. We'll be in Manhattan doing some others. So we got some really good video content coming up. Quick recap of the show. Started out with Sam Altman's Code Red, the issue with Boston's real estate market. Deep dived into JLL's global tech survey. Had some fun with that. Big fan of the Big Red. Went into building nodes. Talked about some breaking news. And then, of course, one more bit of news. Appreciate the show today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep hitting us up on feedback.